All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. My name's Greg O'Rourke, and this is a live stream from FretDojo.com, my website, which is all about mastery of jazz guitar. So I hope you guys are doing well. This is very exciting. This is the first live workshop that I've conducted on the website, and it's been fantastic to see so many people from all around the world come and join in here. So yeah, it's a really interesting workshop today, actually. So it's all about jazz chord progressions, how to kind of break out out of standard sounding progressions and make things sound a bit more kind of modern and interesting approaches that you can take with your progressions. So I'm really excited today, and I'd like to introduce to you the fabulous jazz guitarist extraordinaire, my good friend Stuart King. Welcome to the live broadcast, Stu.
Thanks for having me on, Greg. It's nice to be here. I hope today's lesson is fun and informative, and I hope you guys get something out of it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, man. So yeah, well, we'll get into it in just a second. We've got quite a few people still rocking up to the workshop, but in the meantime, how about we say hello to everyone that's participating in the chat box there. Welcome from us, and yeah, it'd be great to hear from you guys where you're all from, so put in the chat now, where you're watching this right now, what city you're in. And yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see how kind of international this workshop has gone. So, and also, let us know if there's any issues with the video or sound as we're going today. So yeah, the webinars are often can have a few problems here and there. So it's good to know about them as they come up. So yeah, we have Me Free from Wyocena in USA. Jim is from Quebec City in Canada, British Columbia in Canada. We've got Gordon, my student actually. Hello, Gordon from South Africa. Welcome. Mexico City. Wow, look at this. This is crazy, man. Miguel from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Puerto Rico, Savannah. Robbo from Brisbane. Good on you, Robbo. Good to see you, mate. And wow, this is crazy. We got Bulgaria, Alina from Bulgaria, Ron from Toronto. This is absolutely insane. Stu, you've gone international, mate. So welcome to everyone coming along to this workshop. And yeah, well, I think it's probably time to kick it off in just a minute. So yeah, so for all of you just joining us, welcome, and to this workshop on how to make your own jazz chord progressions that sound great. So Stuart, I think I might hand it over to you now to get started into the workshop. So yeah, but just one more thing before we get into it is I'm being very proud actually to be involved in Stuart's album project that he's just released. It's called Qualia. And yeah, I've been helping co-produce the album and doing a bit of mixing and so forth. And yeah, it's been a really great couple of weeks actually. We've had a great launch of this album, and it's great to see so many people supporting independent music. And for those of you that are joining this workshop today, we've got a very special offer actually that you can get if you purchase the album while you're at the workshop or in the next 48 hours from the end of the workshop. And I'm going to get into that in a little while after Stu does his presentation. But keep that in mind that there are some goodies happening for everyone that's participating. So without further ado, Stu, I might hand it over to you. And yeah, it's going to be great to hear about your compositions from Qualia, how you went about composing them, and some of the techniques that you've used to get your chord progressions sounding as awesome as they do.
Cool, thanks, Greg. Well, yeah, it's all the compositions on that album are original tunes of mine, and some of them I wrote, over a number of years, and they draw from a lot of different things. I guess there's a few compositions there that have a more kind of use more traditional style chord progressions, such as 2-5-1s. 2-5-1 progressions and such. And then there's a few others as well that use kind of more modern sounds that kind of step away from that. And I guess today what I'm hoping to talk about and give you guys a bit of insight into is how you can kind of start coming up with your own kind of chord progressions, while still being able to use the kind of more traditional like sort of 2-5-1s or the 5-1 harmony, but also to kind of, you know, do a few different things with that, or, you know, step away from that as well if you like. So yeah, so I guess probably
because that's one of the things that really struck me when we were mixing it, right, is how interesting your chord progressions were on this album. And this is actually where the idea came from, the workshop. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic opportunity to learn a bit more about modern jazz harmony, because that's not covered very much out there actually. And for you guys that are in the chat that have just joined us, welcome. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions as we're going today, as we go through the workshop, and I'll sing them out for you on your behalf. So yeah, man. Cool.
That'd be awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, so I guess we'll get into it. So I think 2-5-1 or 5-1 harmony is a good place to start, actually, to see, like, it's a starting point so we can see where we're at and what we can do with it, and then where we can go from there, and some different approaches we can take. So first of all, I'm sure most people are familiar with 2-5-1 harmony. Just to kind of go over a few things first, I think it's important to kind of like discuss that briefly. So if we're in the key of F, so F major, or F major 7, our chord 5 is going to be a C7 chord. Okay. Now in jazz, it's common to put chord 2 in front of that. Now, one of the reasons why that chord sounds so strong is because of these two notes here, the 3rd and the 7th of the chord, and they want to resolve quite strongly to chord 1. Now that's important to remember. So you might refer to those as the guide tones. Some people will call those two notes the guide tones. And they're really important for us to understand for a variety of reasons. Now, looking at some of the tunes that we've written, the other reason that we'll find that these kind of 2-5-1 and 5-1 harmony works really well is the way that the root note moves. And if we're on, say, we're playing C7 to F, one of the things that's quite strong about that sound is the root note, the C, resolving downwards by perfect fifth to the F note there. And that, like cycle 5 harmony, going through the cycle of fifths kind of thing, it gives us a very strong sound. So when we put the chord 2 in front of that C7 chord, so the G minor 7 in front of the C7 chord, that's actually a fifth above the C. So G minor 7, down a fifth, and then to the C7, and then down a fifth to the F. Okay, and we can even extend further upon that. A common turnaround that we use a lot in jazz and in standards and all sorts of music is what we call a 3-6-2-5 pattern. So in the key of F, that would be A minor 7, so that's chord 3, D minor 7, G minor 7, C7, and back to F. Now, obviously in jazz, we tend to use a major 7th or a 6th chord for chord 1, rather than a plain major chord. So the reason that's strong as well is because we're moving by fifth. If I started from the A, I'll go from the A up here. We go down a perfect fifth to the D, down a perfect fifth to the G, down a perfect fifth to the C, down a perfect fifth to the F. So this cycle 5 movement's really important in harmony. Now, what we tend to do a lot in jazz as well is actually not only just stay with the basic A minor 7, the diatonic chords, often we can alter them and make them dominant 7th chords as well. So A7, for example, so if we're in the key of F, pick up from A7, we can add some extensions as well. So A7, and then you could even have D7, D7 sharp 9, for example. G minor 7, or G7, C7. Sometimes we do an alteration on chord 5, C7 sharp 9, sometimes sounds nice, or flat 9. So we might get this kind of. When we do this, we refer to these chords as secondary dominant seventh chords. So secondary dominant seventh chords are important. Today's lesson, we're not going to get too much into secondary dominant seventh chords because there's a few other things I want to talk about. One thing that's very interesting about the dominant seventh chord is that chord 5, so for example the chord C, is that we can actually substitute that chord. So rather than have a C7 resolving downwards by a perfect fifth to the F, we can actually use a G flat 7 resolving downwards by semitone to the F. And the reason that works, sorry, so the C7 would resolve downwards by perfect fifth, the root, whereas the G flat 7 would resolve downwards by semitone. And the reason that works is because they have the same guide tone. There's the guide tones, the third and the seventh from the C7. The G flat 7 has the exact same two guide tones, so they function the same way. And this semitone resolution downwards by semitone is quite strong, has a very strong pull downwards. So in a lot of my tunes, I like to use those, and we call those tritone substitutions. So we're substituting the C7 with the G flat 7. So the root note is actually a tritone away as well. Okay, so that's a really useful chord. So for example, a way of kind of substituting chords. So for example, in the tune I wrote called 41, which is the first track on the album, I used a lot of kind of 2-5-1 harmony. It was originally intended to kind of have, it refers to a lot of chord progressions that you'd hear in a lot of standards. And, you know, it has elements of, you know, maybe, you know, like Kenny Burrell or George Benson or Wes Montgomery in terms of like the chordal kind of structure. It's an AABA form. And yeah, it's really, the harmony's quite straightforward, but what I did is I changed a few things around to make it a bit more interesting. So rather than, when we're in the key of F minor, I was using a lot of what we call minor 2-5-1s, right? Well, you would in F minor. So G minor 7 flat 5 is 2. Also known as G half diminished, and C7, C7 sharp 9, flat 9. That's a very strong sound. Now, if we go back to using our secondary dominants, we could use a G7 in place of the G minor 7 there, get this sound. So G7, C7, F minor. Now that sounds good too, but what we can actually do on any of these dominant 7 chords, I can now take this G7 and substitute that a tritone above with a D flat 7 and play a D flat 7 chord, in this case a D flat 9. And that resolves downwards by semitone to the C7. So rather than go regular 2-5-1, you know, I do a substitution whereby I do a D flat 7 to C7 F minor. We can
that sounds very hip, man. That's cool.
And that's a cool progression. And one other thing you can do is actually take the C7 and use the G flat 7 there. So we can extend that out further. So towards the end of the tune, you hear after the bridge, there's a very, actually at the end of the bridge, I do use a lot of 2-5s on the bridge. So
I'm thinking, Stu, maybe how about we play that track for everyone so they can get a sense of what that sound is, that sort of series of tritone subs, because
yeah,
you know, I think it'll paint the picture nicely, man.
Yeah. No, do we have charts for this one available at the moment? Or
yeah, I actually emailed everyone out the charts. So for those of you that have joined us, you can you should have received an email with the Dropbox link with all the charts that Stuart's going through today off his album. So there should be about 3 charts there, I think. So, but anyway, so maybe have that out in front of you guys, and I'll play you the track Stuart's talking about. It's called 41. This was actually the track that was we put out for free for everyone last week to get a listen of this album. But I'll play it to you now again anyway. How does that sound, Stu? We'll play that now.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. Now, just give me a moment. And now, if we get any feedback here, let us know in the chat, because I haven't tried this before on a Hangout. Let's see what happens.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Thanks, Greg.
No worries, man.
And we have a killer bass solo by the fabulous James Luke.
That's right.
So many bass solos. No, that's cool. So that's that kind of tune. It uses a lot of those kind of progressions. Before we move on from that tune, you might find it interesting to note that in the bridge there is actually quite a lot of 2-5-1 harmony happening. So again, like I said, it was very. This is probably more designed to sound like a standard, I guess. But just to kind of quickly discuss how I might have used some of those techniques to kind of spice up things a little bit in the bridge. I'll kind of have a look at that briefly. So in the bridge, we go to B flat minor 7 to E flat to A flat major 7. Very similar to all the things you are, for example. So then we've got to D flat major 7. Now I move the root upwards by a semitone. We're doing a modulation here. So we've just modulated into A flat major. We've gone to D flat major, which is chord 4. Now I'm going to hint at modulating towards C major, D minor 7. But what I wanted to do here was get back to the key of F minor. So rather than go to a regular C major chord, I went to a C sus kind of chord. So it's like a C13 sus. And this is where I use that other technique. I went upwards by a semitone to play a D flat sus chord. What do I write on the chart there? D flat 9 sus 4. I've got a 13 there, so D flat 13, and then to G flat 7, the 13 on top. And that actually gives us that cycle 5 there, and then resolving downwards by a semitone.
Very cool.
My old harmony teacher used to call it, I think he called it cycle 5 off the sub 5. So taking the substitute dominants, taking the substitute dominant chords and then taking cycle 5 off that. So
yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I think it makes sense when you call it that.
Cycle 5 off the sub 5 sounds extremely technical, but yeah, we're actually doing the sub 5s, the substitute dominants here, and then we're still hinting at cycle 5. So where I wanted to go with this, it was a bit of a long introduction. But we need to kind of understand that before we can move on. The thing I found interesting about learning that in harmony is that, okay, well, if we have a look at what's going on, we're doing a lot of cycle 5 movement in the roots. And then, a lot of harmony is then moving on to substitute dominance. So, the roots now resolving downwards by semitone. But in modern jazz, what if we think of other kind of ways of using the root note to create cool progressions? So you would have noticed, before perhaps you could use, for example, a static root note and change the harmony on top of that. So, example in the kind of standard repertoire might be Green Dolphin Street, where we're singing like a key of C. If we're playing a C pedal, so like a C major chord, and then a C minor 7 chord. We're changing the chordal structure on top of this C pedal, D flat. So it's getting this kind of, and that there, we're using something that I like to use quite a lot as well, and we refer to those as upper structure triads. And an upper structure triad is basically playing a triad superimposed over any bass note. So in this example, we could look at it just to see triad. It's a C major chord. There's the C, you know, and this is C minor 7. But let's just say for the time being, we could call that an E flat triad. This could be a D major triad, D flat triad. So this idea now is we've changed things. Rather than move the root at all, let's keep it static, you know, like in a pedal. And you can do that over anything. You can do it over dominant 7th chord. So for example, if you're in the key of C, like we just were, and you go to a G7, you know, you might have a section where you're doing a pedal, where you're just sitting on the G.
That's a very common technique, isn't it, Stu, in modern jazz? I've heard that a lot over the years.
Using the pedal, yeah, it's a really good approach, and it kind of brings us into a new area actually, because I think this is actually kind of fascinating. One thing I learned, and I learned this from I must give him credit, my old music teacher called Mike Price, a great Australian guitarist, and
yeah, fabulous Australian jazz guitarist, yeah.
Yeah, and I learned a lot about harmony from him. But one of the things that we kind of worked on a bit, and you know, was studying harmony and guitar, was you know, superimposing different triads over a pedal. So you know, for example, at G7, right? If we're on a G7, rather than just playing our standard G7, you can play a number of triads. You know, like an E major triad. Yeah, so that would give us like a G13 with a flat 9 sound. You know, you could use a D flat. You could use an F major for like a G sus sound. D flat major. I think I did that one already. There's a whole variety. A flat. Yeah, F minor. So it gives us a whole variety of things, and it doesn't even have to be a dominant 7th sound. Like for example, this is a very modern sounding one. That's a B major over G.
Wow, that's trippy.
G major 7 sharp 5. So this is a cool thing you can work on as well. Do nothing with the root, but change what's happening on top. So I kind of was a little bit.
We have a bit of an sorry, Stu. We have a bit of an example, I think, of that off the album. Matt, would you like to play that now?
Yeah. So I realised that this approach is kind of similar in the sense, but I've now flipped it on its head. So rather than keep the root static and then change the harmony on top, keep the harmony on top static and change the root. So that's another approach you might use. And I used that, for example, in a tune called Great Ocean Road, which is on the album as well. I played that one on an acoustic guitar. And Greg, you played on that one too, actually.
Yeah, that's right. That was a lot of fun.
So for all of you fans out there, check out Greg's playing on that. He's an excellent rhythm player, and as well as, you know, jazz player and a soloist, of course. But yeah, the rhythm playing is impeccable, and really beautiful sense of rhythm and time and phrasing.
I'm blushing, man.
It's very, yeah. I've always been envious of Greg's kind of accompanying skills. But yeah, the idea there was rather than keep the root static, keep the harmony static. And harmonically, you can use any note. You don't have to name it. It doesn't have to have a name. You can just pick 3 notes. So here's 3 notes, right? Sounds beautiful. And then superimpose different root notes over it. That's a C. And that was basically the foundation of how I started this tune. So like a little 6/8 kind of thing. And you could take that any step further. Like for example, I didn't use these chords, but I could then move around and try any note. So if you have a 3-note or 2-note or 4-note, whatever voicing, try different root notes and see what they sound like, and you can come up with cooler chords that you might never have thought of. So I'll try, for example, a D. That's a pretty cool sound. We could be a bit more adventurous and try an E flat.
Nice. I like that one.
Yeah, what is it? It's actually like a minor and a major chord with a.
That had Bill Frisell written all over it, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he has lovely chords like that. But yeah, like you can just try them, like any note you want. F sharp, G. I I can tell the F's not going to work. We're going to get a big minor 9 interval, but let's do it anyway.
Nasty.
So
that one's awesome.
And I've used that approach on a lot of tunes, keeping the harmony static, changing the bass note. Yeah, did you want to have a listen to that one, Greg?
Yeah, let's do this. Let's give it another go. So so just to kind of demonstrate what Stu's talking about here about kind of manipulating the use of the bass note, upper structure triads, keeping the changing the root over a common triad. Let's have a look at this now. I'll just get it going. Okay, cool. I'll just do the fade out. Oh, there we go. How smooth was that?
Oh, perfect.
Cool, man. It's a great tune, that one.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and that kind of brings me to the next kind of point, is that if we can use techniques like this, then what about moving the root note, in other kind of ways? So we've talked about keeping the root note static. We've talked about, keeping the harmony the same and moving the root around to kind of give it a different impression of what's happening with the harmony. But, if we think about what's happened, what we're doing with the root, like what we've done so far is, either keep it the same or move it around a bit. Cycle 5 movement and, the secondary dominance and substitute dominance. What we haven't really looked at is a great deal of stepwise movement or leaps such as thirds and sixths. And we can start thinking about, well, what can we do there to create different chord progressions, that step away from that? So in Great Ocean Road, for example, you'll see that I used this device at the beginning, but I just continued moving the root, around by step. So semitones or tones, or half steps or whole steps for those of you in the US. So after that chord there, I've moved down a step, a semitone or half step, and another step down, 2 frets. Same technique again, keeping the harmony static. Okay, and now I've moved on to doing a standard, 5-1 harmony, and that's fine. You can still use it. Moving by a couple of steps. Now what we're doing here is moving up by a minor sixth. So that's something we haven't, a root movement we haven't used from there to there. So we've gone from this chord, so to there to there, and from there I've moved up by a minor third. Down by a tritone, and then stepwise, and then I've hit like what sounds like chord 1. It's actually a Lydian kind of sound, B flat Lydian, and I love this chord. A few voicings I like. So you can see we've used a lot of different root movements there. So that's I found that to be useful, and you hear like that in a lot of more modern chord progressions as well. Yeah, I guess post-bop harmony, perhaps you might hear it there. So that's kind of my approach to those. Yeah.
So yeah, we've covered tritone subs and playing with the roots of the chords, and like either changing the the root note over the same upper structure or the same triad on top, or alternatively keeping the root note static and changing the upper structure or the triads on top of the static root note. So that's kind of what you're saying, Stu, so far.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there's a lot of different things there that you can work on. And I mean, that's just one way of thinking. You know, there are other things you can work on. For example, fourths voicings. You know, and in fact,
cool. We should get into that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's so fourths voicings. Most guitarists probably find that you use them fairly regularly anyway. But fourths voicings sound great, and we're getting away from the kind of triadic harmony here, where we're stacking the harmony in fours. So we're building, you know, chords off, you know, by stacking fourths. So for example, I was at one point working on, you know, doing 2, 3, 4 note, or not 2, 3 note, 4 note, 5 note fourths voicings, and yeah, it kind of, I was exploring that, and they're very interesting. So fourths voicings will sound like this. I'll just give you an E pedal, and I'll play kind of E fourths voicings, 3 note voicings, using the E Dorian scale. I hope I can remember it. So they have a very kind of cool modern sound. Yeah. Now, exploring those, there's lots of kind of cool things you can do with them. You can move them around in different ways. So there's lots of cool kind of things you can do with them. With the fourth voicings, you can, you know, stack another fourth and have little 4 note voicings. So if I can remember those.
Wow, that's cool, isn't it? They sound really kind of flexible, you know, like that. There's a lot of ambiguity about what the key center is with those type of chords, isn't there?
Yeah, and they give a very open kind of sound, you know. I really like them actually. So yeah, you can do like stuff where you kind of play out of, like, you can take them and kind of shift them around so that you kind of sidestepping, I guess maybe the technique is called. It's the same thing, kind of like keeping the pedal. I should try and do that in time, but yeah, and they're really cool. You could go on all day. It's a bit of fun. Something to work on perhaps. But I was working on this at one point, and you know, the common ones are 3 and 4 note voicings, but I was extending them out into 5 note voicings on guitar, trying to work them all out. And I'm sure that you could probably find, you know, a resource for the 5 note voicing somewhere. But if you're interested, actually, maybe we could write some of them out at some point, Greg.
Yeah. Maybe we could do that after the workshop. We can put down a few of these chord shapes on for people, because yeah, it might be hard for them to pick on the fly. So how about we get together after the event?
Let us know if you're interested, guys. Anyway, maybe something we can look at doing for you as well. Yeah. But
cool.
Well, so the fourth voicings, I found that if I added an extra note, I could come up with some cool ones. What you find often is that the final note isn't always a fourth. Sometimes you get a third on top. So technically not a full, complete fourth voicing, but they can start to get a bit weird. So you often get voicings like this, where you have a fourth, and then a minor third. Like impressions, for example, or so what. So those kind of voicings are really cool. But I was working on that and keeping them all the same, and I found that if I move the root, I could, by a semitone, like we've been talking about, or a half step, I could come up with cool voicings as well. So, and that was kind of the inspiration for the tune Qualia, which is the title track of the album. So I was working with this voicing here. And, you know, they're hard hard to name, so I got kind of like I think I called it a B flat 6/9. This one's a bit of a hard one to name. D major 7, sharp 11 with a 13. It's a but anyway, so they can be tricky to name if you're kind of thinking of them like that. But yeah, B 6/9 over D sharp. Anyway, so but if I take this fourth voicing here, this 5-note voicing, and move just this note down a semitone.
That's very cool.
And that actually gives us the opening chords of Qualia.
Oh, that's the title track, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. So that's how I came up with that. It was just an exercise working on fourth voicing and moving the root around. And yeah, I found that very useful.
I think that's a good segue to play the track. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good. Again, this was played on acoustic guitars on the day. So nice. Hopefully it gives the album a bit of variety.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I really like about how this album, how it moves from kind of, you know, more a standard jazz sound, you know, with you know, your electric guitar and so forth, but then it kind of shifts as it goes to kind of nylon string fingerstyle work, and yeah, there's a lot of variety in this one. So yeah, and Quali is the final track, but I think it's my favorite actually on the album. So how about we give this one a play so people can hear these experiments of fourths voicings in action.
And everyone should have a chart for this one, I believe.
Yeah, they should do. Yeah, so look at your charts, guys, and see if you can follow what's going on here with the music. Here we go. Oops. Let's try that again. And fade out. Cool, man.
Yeah, so that tune again, if you are looking at the chart, I hope it doesn't appear too confusing. I've tended to I've tried to keep it as simple as I can, I guess, but if you'll notice a lot of the things that I've talked about in there. For example, there's the fourth voicing and the moving bass. If you look at the second page, there's a few chords that have, you know, they can be tricky to name. So this chord here, starting from B on page 2, right? Effectively, it's another one of those upper structure triads. You've got a B triad with a C sharp note in the bass. Now we could think of this as a few different chords. I opted to call it the C sharp minor 9 chord because I hit this E natural note there. It sounds very much like that chord to me. Next chord is just it's an A9 chord with a 13 on top, and then another chord here. Again, you can see the root movement, a third by semitone, so with less kind of movement, less cycle 5 movement in this tune. So again, we've come to this chord here, the G minor 9. So the melody. Again, the root is moved downwards from G sharp to a G. And this is where things get a little more interesting, I guess, harmonically, and it becomes, it's a bit of an exercise in soloing over chords, this one, but we go another upper structure triad, but what I did here is just kept everything the same, but moved it up a fret. So we're getting into this kind of idea of parallel movement. And then to the next chord, we've got this nice voicing here for a G major 9 over B. You can name it B minor 7 sharp 5 if you wanted to. It's another way of thinking of it, but that's what I called it. And then I moved that up a fret. So again, parallel or chromatic movement. Moved it up a fret again. And then I came back down a fret, doing another upper structure triad. Although in this instance it was more like a B minor 7 over C, so it wasn't so much an upper structure, but it has that same kind of sound. So we're getting a bit of, combination of, upper structure triads, chromatic or parallel movement, yeah, finishing on that chord there. And again, resolving downwards back to the key of B major. Every jazz player's favorite key, right? People are stumped when you give them a chart with B major. They're like, what's going on?
That's right.
Not B flat. Anyway, so then we get to a B flat sus2 chord, probably a bit more common in pop or rock or whatever. And again, I use the same technique. I just keep the bass note the same, but change what's happening on top. Then I change to a new chord. This one was hard to name as well. It's kind of like a fourth voicing in inversion. You got a fourth, a second, and another fourth. And then I superimposed an A bass note over that. F sharp sus over A. So this can be hard to name. When you're working creatively, don't think about what they're called. Just use your ears, I mean, you can think about what they're called if you want, but in this instance, you spend all day trying to analyze the harmony. So I took that little voicing here, and then for the last 3 chords, I just moved the bass. So I've gone.
So, Stu, just something I wanted to say here, man, is what I find really interesting about the this tune is that, like, as you say, it's got lots of these kind of more advanced, I guess you could say, approaches to harmony. Those upper structures, bass notes, chordal harmony. But what I really like about this one is actually how listenable it is. It's not like it's like listening to Schoenberg, like that sort of far out classical music, serialism, things like that. This is like works really well for the ear. Like anyone could kind of hear that and relate to it, which I find really interesting about these approaches.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear you say that, because I don't hear it as sounding complex, and in the sense that if I've tried to play over these complicated chord progressions, and it might sound to someone like, why is that guy struggling to play over those chords? But the chords themselves don't actually sound that complicated. That's the thing. Like I was saying, use your ears. A good sounding chord or a good sounding harmony, it may be complex to analyze, but it should have a certain sound. So if you're finding something sounds unnecessarily complex, then you can leave it. Like, things don't have to be complicated to sound good, and I guess that's why some of the other tunes use very basic 2-5-1 harmony. It's not, you don't have to break away from it. It's just that these are other tools that you can use to be creative. And I think probably what helps with that tune as well is because there's so much happening harmonically in that tune, qualia that is, I did try to keep the melody very simple. So there's a lot of air, the melody's just kind of sitting on the surface of the chords, and the chords are kind of telling the story, and the melody's just kind of coming above. So I think, you can't necessarily, it's not always all about the chords as well. Like, the melody has a very important role to play there to kind of say something for the chords, I think.
Yeah, cool, man. No, well, so I guess there's 3 of your tunes, like sort of a deep dive into them. We covered, just to summarize for everyone here, we Stuart talked about tritone substitution, and kind of sub 5 off secondary dominance and things like that. And as I mentioned before, the chordal harmony and the and playing with root notes of the bass. And yeah, so I think between those techniques, you have a big opportunity to kind of experiment with your own compositions and sort of get out of those kind of more standard sounding forms that your ears could get tired of after a while. Sometimes it's nice to even just put a couple of these approaches in here and there to spice things up a bit. And you'll find that when people are comping, they'll often do that anyway, to keep things interesting. Like these don't just apply to composing tunes, but also for bringing more color into the comping. Like Ed Bickett was really good at these kind of techniques, so you guys should check him out for a bit of inspiration. So so I just wanted to thank you, Stu, for going through all these things today, man. It was really awesome, man. I learned a lot through listening to you today. So yeah, on behalf of all of us here, yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's been nice, and I hope you guys have learned something. And yeah, it's a pleasure as always.
Yeah, man. So I don't want to quite wrap the workshop off yet, because I wanted to give some, like, the reason I thought we could wrap up the kind of the formal presentation now is so that people had an opportunity to ask questions if there are any. But I wanted to go through for everyone watching at the moment and also on the replay that we thought, as a bit of a bonus for people that have registered for this workshop, well, we thought we could give you something special along with the album if you wanted to get a copy of that. So yeah, I think I wanted to really encourage you to support Stuart. Like, independent music is hard to kind of get out there these days. And it's been great to see so many people purchase the album already. So if you haven't got a copy yet, I'd really consider it. It's definitely one of the most innovative jazz albums that I've listened to, actually, because it's a little bit unusual. Like, it hasn't got drums. There's some nylon string stuff, and also all these compositional approaches like make for a really unique sound. And I think Stuart's really put his own kind of personal signature on this album, which makes it work so well. So yeah, now if you look on the webinar, on the workshop page that you're looking at now, just below it, you can see that there's a blue button there, so you can get 20% off the album if you buy it within the next few days. I think that's going to close in a few days' time, but you just need to enter the code FretDojo on the checkout to get that discount applied. But along with that, if we've decided, if you purchase the album between now and within 48 hours of this workshop closing, so if you get your copy within then, what we're actually going to do is include all the charts from the session. So you guys got 3 of the charts to work through today, but what we're going to do is also include every single chart from the studio session, so that you can get a good insight as to how all the chord progressions work on this album. So I think that's really cool, because between the album and the charts there, you basically have a study guide to advanced jazz harmony, pretty much, which isn't covered very much these days. So I thought that could be something really nice that we could offer you as a way of participating. So yeah, please, if you haven't got a copy yet, please support Stuart, and check out his music. I think it's fantastic. And so thanks, Stu, for spending the months and months putting this thing together, man. It was a real pleasure working with you on this.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks for being involved in the project, and helping produce it and play on it and all that sort of thing as well. And and your playing actually adds something that I couldn't have done myself, or to the album. Like, it really adds something special for me. And I feel like the compositions are represented really well, and I hope and for anyone interested as well, they are the actual charts that I emailed to Greg for the session as well. So these are the charts I use or give to other musicians in my band and things like that. So they're not nothing's been changed. Literally, they're the exact charts I emailed to Craig. So yeah, grab a copy of them. They're not available anywhere else anyway. So there's some interesting stuff there. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so thanks, man, for supplying them. I think that was a really nice gesture for the participants here. So yeah, now I just want to do one last thing before we head into the Q&A. Let's give Stuart a virtual round of applause for the workshop. So if you're in the chat box now, please, like do any kind of capital letters and exclamation marks, like to sort of simulate an applause for Stuart. We have some very nice comments here. A viewer said, thanks, very challenging, but that's why I love jazz. Great advice. Some get caught up with complexity for the sake of complexity. So yeah, I really liked how, likewise, Stu, how you did that today, because I think it's, like, for example, sometimes when I was in classes at university, it'd be so kind of far removed from actually like any practical application. But when you explained it in this way, it was really made everything so straightforward. So so someone else has said here, that was great, guys. Thanks so much. I'm not as advanced as you guys and had trouble following at times. Nevertheless, loved it. Everyone's saying very cool and thanks. We've got some woohoos. Yeah, clap, clap, man. It's all happening. So, oh yeah, someone's raised a good point here, actually. Karl said, Greg, I purchased the album to get a listen prior to watching. Can I still get the charts? That's absolutely right. For anyone that's already purchased the album, like before this workshop or whenever, all you have to do to get the charts is email myself a receipt of your purchase, and that's Greg at FretDojo.com. But I'll send you guys an email all about this after the event, and I'll send you a copy of all the charts. So that's how you'll get the charts if you have purchased the album previously, or if you do so in the next 48 hours. So yeah, we've got a Yahoo. Cheers. It was very enlightening. Someone said the free charts will be a lot of fun to work with. Looking forward to getting the album, a cigar, and a glass of wine. Well, I think after this, we need a cigar and glass of wine ourselves.
Oh, sounds amazing.
Cool. Awesome. So now we might kick it into the Q&A now, but it'd probably be good if we wrap this up pretty soon in the next 10-15 minutes or so. But so if people have any questions to Stu about what was covered, or any other questions about jazz guitar in general, or a jazz composition in general, feel free to ask anything here now. I think that's the cool thing about live sessions. You're going to get some instant feedback here from a very experienced performer. Stuart studied for many years at university jazz guitar, but probably more importantly, like that, he's a serious gigging musician. He's done hundreds of gigs around Australia, performed in festivals and like in every possible other format you can imagine. So I get a lot of inspiration from Stu's experience, and yeah, let's head it into the Q&A. So I'll be checking out these questions in the meantime. But if regardless of that, Stuart, I thought this might be a nice opportunity for myself to ask you a couple of questions. So
yeah, sure.
Now, this is, to tell you the truth, like when you've pulled these charts up on me at gigs, sometimes I struggle a bit because of the. Perhaps it's just because of the chord changes are quite difficult to read. You know what I mean? Because they're difficult to explain in traditional harmony. So, what sort of soloing approaches would you take over these kind of progressions? For example, the ones in Great Ocean Road or Qualia or something like that.
Okay, that's a really good question. I think, and it's an important question too. So in the context of, you've kind of got this tune, the harmony's unfamiliar, perhaps you're not really sure what's going on or what the composer intended. There's a couple of things that you can do initially. I think, first of all, look at what the melody is doing. You can embellish the melody to such an extent that it will become almost like a theme and variations, I guess. I think, like, we're kind of talking about classical music in that sense, but taking the idea of what is the melody doing and kind of moving that around and kind of taking your own thing on it. So that's one thing you could do if you're on, in one of those contexts. When we're getting into kind of harmony where, you know, someone gives you a B over C sharp chord, like I myself, you know, if I'm sight reading on a gig or a session, I see that chord. It could mean a variety of things. On that chart for qualia, I wrote in brackets C sharp minor 9, so hopefully that was helpful. You know, a jazz player might see that and think, oh yeah, Dorian, you know, and use the Dorian scale over that chord. So hopefully I've helped people a little bit there, but I guess there's two things that you can do. One is I kind of do sometimes rely on the scalic kind of vocabulary. So I do know, you know, I can use a Dorian scale over a minor 7th chord or a minor 9 chord. Minor 9 chord is going to be a big clue because there's really two popular scale, or two scales that would work, you know, as in a Dorian scale or an Aeolian or the natural minor scale. So I could use a scalic approach. You know, if I see a G major 7 sharp 11, I'm pretty much guaranteed to know that that's going to be a G Lydian scale. So yeah, right. There is another scale, but getting away from the scalic approach, one thing that I find really useful is rely on the chord shapes a bit, and there's nothing wrong with doing this because the chord tones are always going to be the strongest notes to land on or to resolve towards in a phrase. So if I'm looking at the bridge in qualia, the first chord there, right, I know that these notes are going to work. So basically a cool technique you can do is add a note above or below any of those notes. And the next chord is an A7, right? Or the 13 and the 9. Right, so I can really just think about the chord shape. There's my notes.
Yeah, right.
And then the G.
It's a good approach.
Yeah, like I'm really just thinking about the notes of the chords. Another thing you might do is you might identify the key signature, and if you've got a nice composer, I don't think I wrote the key signature there on that chart, which I should have done. It should say B major. But yeah, in B major, if I know that we're in B major, I can just kind of flesh out the rest of the B major scale. So here's B major. Right? And I've got this chord now. So keep the notes from the scale the same, but just adapt them to fit the chord. For example, so if we're hitting G major 7 sharp 11, there's the B. Imagine I'm doing a B major scale. I just need to change that G note there because it's gone from a G sharp to the B major scale. It's usually G sharp, so I'll just lower that note to fit the chord. That's actually a pretty cool scale. So that can be something to help you, you know, and chord tones are always strong. So pick your chord and add a note above or below. Beyond that, I think that's a really good sounding approach. You know, you can rely on the scalic kind of thing. You can use the chord tones and adding, like passing notes above or below the chord tones. And you can always refer back to the melody. And no one will, well, I can't imagine anyone would be upset with you if you were referring to the melody in your solo.
Well, that's the thing. Some of the best solos out there are based on the melody. so you know, like look at Chet Baker, people like that. You know, he was using the melody all the time. So
and that's it, and that's what we're really getting at. Like all this is a means to a musical end. And you know, if you don't have great technique in terms of like you can't play at blistering speeds, which you know isn't necessary, or you don't have, you know, a great knowledge of chords and scales and such like that, that's okay. That's fine. You've got to find the way you can express yourself musically. Now, obviously, you can develop those things, and you should. But just, you know, there's nothing wrong with being melodic and playing simple. Simple's often best. And anytime I listen back to myself and I don't like it, it's because I've been overplaying. You know what I mean? So yeah, melodic.
Great advice, man. Cool. So there's actually a few other questions that have come in, Stuart. Let's see how many we can get through it in the short time we have left, because I did want to just if you've got, I know you've got to run pretty soon, Stu, but I wouldn't mind asking you as a special surprise for everyone something after these questions are finished. But let's go through a few of them now. So it looks like the chat box had some problems, so I can't see people's first names here sometimes. But let's I'll just, so someone's asked here, Stuart, do you play all your songs with standard tuning?
Generally, generally, yes. However, on that album, there's a tune called Qualia. No, the album's called. So there's a tune called Waterfalls, and the album's called Qualia. In case you didn't know already. No, there's a tune called Waterfalls, and I used my Fender Telecaster on that one. This one here, it's very
nice,
very sexy.
Can you hold it up again? The camera switched just as when you were showing everyone.
Oh, here we go. It's a bit it's getting a bit dusty and dirty.
It's pretty nice though. I like that guitar.
So I used that one on Waterfalls, and that was tuned to a semitone lower, or a half step lower. So when I played E major, so let's do something interesting here, and I'll put some church reverb on. When I was playing over the E major progression, it was actually sounding as an E flat. So yeah, kind of like, it's not a rock technique. So I actually play it in E. Check it out, but it just sounded good. I liked it. So you've got an E flat chart for that one, but if you wanted to play it in E like I do, just move everything up a half step.
Cool, man. No, great answer. Thank you. And let's move to a couple more questions here. I think this is a really good one. A viewer has asked, what is the best way to learn, in brackets, quickly, some of the theory that you covered today? I think that's a really good question, you know, because you've given a very good overview, but, you know, like, what would be the kind of the step-by-step approach people could take to, you know, I guess learning how to compose with these techniques, and also learn how to comp with them as well?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing I would do is you've got to look at fundamentally what is the most important thing that you need to understand. We're talking about a lot of different things here today, but really when it gets down to it, you need to have a good understanding of key signatures and what they are and how they work. So knowing about major and minor keys is really important, because you can actually do a lot just knowing your basic major scales. So Ionian mode, you know, and just basic understanding how that works and fits in. For example, if you're playing a tune, so let's use key of C for, like, keep things simple, right? You're playing a standard, right? It's in the key of C. You can see that we start and end on the C, for example. You've looked at the key signature. So you know that, okay, well, great, I'm using the C major scale. But then inevitably, you will come across a chord that doesn't fit into what you understand the chords. You'll see a chord that will not necessarily be a diatonic chord to the key of C. So the diatonic chords being C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G7, A minor, do I do that right? A minor 7 and B minor 7 flat 5. You'll see, okay, that's great. That means I can play C or the associated mode off each of those chords. But what happens when you see B flat 7 sharp 11? You'll be like, oh, I don't know what to do now. I have to learn a new scale. Well, not necessarily, because often you'll know when a modulation happens. It's usually fairly apparent. So if we see a progression like we're in C major, right? I just did C major 7, B flat 7, with a sharp 11 to A minor 7, right? If you were to see that chord progression, you might be like, well, no, I don't know what to play with that B flat chord. It's actually fairly simple. Keep the C major scale the same. When you get to the B note, change it to a B flat note. Okay? And if I was to start that, play the C major scale, but I was to start it from the B flat, but keep the rest of the notes the same. Oh, and I had to change the A flat, sorry, because it's a D flat 7. So C, D is normal, E fits normally, F is still there, G is still there, but I have to change to A to an A flat to accommodate that chord. Okay, well, how does that sound? I'll just kind of freely play over those. So C. A minor. Yeah, and then all I've done here is adapt that one note, or two notes, in fact, the B flat and the A flat. Now, what's happened is we've now actually created a new scale without knowing it. For those of you who are interested, that scale is the B flat Lydian dominant scale, which is a common scale. There's other names for that scale, Greg. What are they?
Lydian dominant scale. I only really know it by Lydian. That's what I've only ever called it.
I like the sound of that scale. It sounds kind of, you know, it's got a cool sound to it. It sounds Lydian dominant. But yeah, so
it's
I think
very useful kind of scale.
Mixed Lydian sharp 11, perhaps. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think Lydian dominant's a very good label for that scale, though.
So I think understanding your major scale harmony in that sense is extremely important, because most of the tunes you play, you whip out the real book, you're going to see standards and just mostly major keys. And then just all you need to do is you see a chord that you don't understand, identify if it's a chord that's leading to a modulation. If it's not, then just change the notes. So major scale harmony and key signatures is extremely important.
So yeah, and I'd just like to add something, you know, like, because the question was about, you know, how do you learn the theory covered quickly? I think, you know, like anything in jazz, the answers are all in the recordings, right? So teachers can only help you so far, but if you actually go to where the music is actually being created, like by people that know what they're doing, then you can you know, study that and then extract the ideas and apply it to your own stuff. You know, that's in the, like, jazz kind of practice overall becomes very simple if you approach it like that. You just find something you like, and you off a recording, and then you learn how to play it yourself, and then you break it down, look at how the kind of the musical grammar works, like kind of along the lines of what Stu was talking about today, and then apply it to your own stuff and create your own music. So that's why I thought that these charts that would, along with this recording, would be a really good study guide, because, you know, it's not easy to figure out this sort of music unless you've got really good ears, because of just the difficult kind of like the more outside sounds that these harmonies have. So just a reminder to everyone that just joined us, I noticed that there's a few more people that have joined us. If as a special offer that we've given to everyone that's attended this workshop, whether you've bought if you've already bought a copy of the album, forward me a receipt of your purchase, and we'll supply all the charts from the studio session of these tunes. And yeah, if you haven't bought the album yet, just click that blue button below and purchase a copy, and email me a receipt at greg@FretDojo.com. I'll write that in the chat in the moment, and I'll forward you a full set of all the charts that was covered, not just the 3 that were outlined in this workshop, but every one of them. So you've got, like, that's kind of the best theory book you could have, really, for this sort of stuff. Like, rather than reading some big volume of some sort of academic-based thing, just go straight to the source, you know. So let's move on to some. These questions are really good. Now, this is kind of related to what you were talking about a little bit there, Stu. But someone here has a theory question. Why is qualia in the key of C? He's looking at your chart. It looks like, but the first chord has 4 sharps in it. So what is going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. A really good question. I think I was kind of referencing that a bit before when I said I should have written the key signature. So that's my bad. I actually do have a chart with the key signature written in it. So what I've probably done is, just because I did translate it into a few different keys for another recording session.
But to be honest, Stu, like when I'm doing my own charts on my website, and I know guys like Matt Warnock that I've talked to do the same, like, because some of this harmony, it changes, kind of modulates so many times, it's often easier to avoid key signatures entirely. So that's actually the approach I've taken these days, is to not actually put the key signatures, especially for this kind of music, and just kind of working out where the key changes are in and of themselves.
Yeah, that's right. So it is a common practice in jazz to leave out the key signature. In this example, I probably would have put the key signature in there, and I do have a chart that has the key signature, but due to I kind of had to modulate it through different keys and put it back. I've left it off that particular chart, but that is, just for reference, that is actually the chart we used on the session. So if you want the official chart, that's correct. But I would write, if you look at the other tunes that you've got 41, you can see I've put the key signature in there. And, you know, so I didn't tend to do it, just that one got left out. But with modern harmony, sometimes there's so many sharps and accidentals and flats and things anyway that sometimes we just leave them out. So it's kind of an optional only thing, I guess, in jazz. But you know, everyone's different. Some people get a bit fussy about not having the key signature, and that's actually quite understandable.
Okay, cool, man. No, but I thought that was a good question there, so it's good we clarified that. Now, we probably have a chance for one last question here, and there, have you got time to quickly answer one last one?
Sure.
Okay, so Stuart, someone says here, sometimes takes me ages to work out complicated chords, and I'm never sure which notes to leave out in, for example, a 13th chord. Do you have any tips for that?
Okay, so with a 13th chord, if we're looking at kind of, say, let's go back to the key of C. So C7 with a 13, right? Just the nature of the guitar, it's going to be difficult to have every extension there. So the 9. With a 13 chord, unless it's a sus chord, I would leave out the 11. You could have the sharp 11 perhaps, but I would generally not worry about the 11. So I'd have 13 and 9 in there. So creating chord voicings on the guitar is interesting. So you can look at drop 2 and drop 3 and all that sort of things, and things like fourth voices we discussed. A simple approach I use that has been very helpful for me, and I actually do it a lot, is if you've got the root here, here's a C. I hope you can see my fingers there. To have the 3rd and the 7th, and often it's really good to put them on the middle 2 strings. Okay, so we've got the 3rd and 7th covered. So there's the basic sound of the C7 chord. So those 2 are important. So if you're looking at leaving out notes to fit in like extensions, the 5th can usually be left out. And if for a dominant 7th chord, leave out the 11th if it's unless it's specifically a sharp 11 or it's a sus chord. So in this instance, for a C13, you could put the 9 on top here and then the 13 below it, and that might give you a kind of good voicing. The other option might be to put the C here, the root. And if you're in a band, you may leave the root out if you've got a bass player. But you have the 3rd and the 7th there, so they're really giving us the distinctive sound of the C7 chord. And then we would add our 9 here, which is our D, and our 13 here, which is our A. Another way you might do it, this voicing I use sometimes. So there's 13, there's the 3rd, there's the 9, there's the flat 7. If you're doing a chord and it doesn't sound good, then you know you can certainly leave out a note. You know, there's no kind of law that says you have to, you know, have every note in the chord. It's actually not practical on guitar to have every extension all the time. So yeah, often
I agree actually, because often when I'm playing like a 13th chord, I just won't play the 9, you know, and it just has exactly. 1 3 7 13, and it still carries the meaning of a 13th chord.
To me, that sounds great, and plus it also, you know, gives you that you can move the 13 around. So say you've got a 2/5 progression. You know, yeah, that's sort of thing. Whereas when you start getting the 9s in there, that's cool as well. If I had the 9s, it's harder in a solo context. If you had a band, the bass player doing that, you might kind of do something like that. Something nice. Like that. But yeah, like, I agree, Greg. Often, you know, put the extension in that sounds right to your ear. Also, remember to check the melody as well. So if you put an extension in, if someone's singing this note, and then you're playing this voicing here with that note right next to it, you're going to get a little bit of a clash. You might get that. So always be aware of what's happening in the melody if you can. If the
awesome answer.
Your chart.
Thanks, Stu. That really clarified that. Yeah, well said. So yeah, I think we'll close the Q&A now, but here's just one last thing that I'm asking Stu to do now. I hope this isn't putting you on the spot, Stu, but I thought, you know, like this is a good opportunity to hear you perform live, you know, like one of the tunes off your album. So how about this, man? Just to finish off the workshop, and it's been a wonderful workshop today, man. We've covered so much, and you're obviously kind of one of the gurus of jazz guitar, I reckon, like especially jazz guitar compositions. So I don't think anyone would find a better workshop on how to cover these techniques. So yeah, maybe just to close it up, man, let's hear one of the tracks off your album, if you can play it solo.
Yeah, sure. Well, I could probably play Elise. I don't think anyone's heard that, or I could do a rendition of 41, perhaps. What do you reckon?
Oh man, just whatever one you want to do for us, man.
Okay, no worries. Let's do a ballad, and if people are sticking around, I might have another go. I think cool. Elise is a good example of it blends a bit of 2/5/1 harmony, but it also has some of that kind of stepwise movement. So we haven't talked about that tune, so maybe that's a good one. And if we're feeling it, I might have a crack at another one, but I'll see how we go. Yeah, thanks.
Wow, I'm going to applause right now. Woo! And I'm sure everyone else is doing virtually as well.
Sweet. Let's do one more then.
One more. All right. Yeah. Let's hear it, man. Let's give Stuart another round of applause in the chat, please, for that fabulous performance. Unfortunately, Google Hangouts isn't the most brilliant platform for sound, but considering it sounded that good over Google Hangouts, guys, imagine what it's going to sound like with the actual album that was recorded in a studio. So yeah, once again, guys, if you want to get a copy of Qualia, within the next 48 hours, if you haven't done so already, email me a receipt of that, and you'll get the complete set of studio charts that you can go through to learn all of the chord progression techniques that Stuart learned today. So man, well, okay, so we'll do one more tune, Stu, then I think we'll need to wrap it up, but we've still got a great crowd here watching, so yeah, let's hit it, man. One more encore.
All right, let's see if I can do a solo version of this one. Solo playing is hard to put, but I like to try anyway, so let's give it a go.
Woo! Yeah, awesome, man. Well done. That was brilliant.
It's hard without the band, but see, give it a go. I kind of wanted to keep going, but I don't know that I got the skills to play the bass at the same time.
Man, I thought that was like, because when you started playing this one, like, because for everyone out there, that was 41, the first track off Qualia, played solo by the amazing Stuart King. I think when you first said you were going to play that one, it's like, how's this going to work? But, you know, man, Joe Pass would be proud right now. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it in time. It's kind of tricky. You know, you want to put some fills in and some licks, but, you know, I guess years of playing solo guitar gigs have kind of taught me that you just got to try and kind of wing your way through it a bit.
Awesome, man. Well, I think for everyone out there, thanks so much for sticking around. You've been a very devoted audience. We've still got lots of people watching this. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to you guys for coming along. It means a lot to us for you to kind of show your support to Stu and come along and really engage with this session. It's been fantastic. So I think that'll... Yeah, so yeah, thanks again, Stu. And where can people find out more about you, man?
Sure, yeah, head over to www.stuartkingmusic.com, STUART. So yeah, I have a website there. Hopefully I'll put a few more things on there over the coming months as well. But you can also visit me on Facebook as well, so facebook.com/Stuart King Music. I've set up a page there, which is fairly new, but from time to time I post videos and things, and same goes for YouTube. Actually, I have a handful of videos there. So Stuart King Music, I think, youtube.com/Stuart King Music. So, but you know, if you go to my webpage, everything's there. It'll send you to all the appropriate places. So yeah, and feel free to send me an email as well. I'd love to hear from anyone, thoughts on the album, or compositions, or always happy to hear from people.
Sweet, man. Well, no, thanks again, Stuart. It's been great to have your wisdom and experience, on display at this workshop. I think that was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, for just a last reminder, everyone, if you want to get a copy of Qualia, just click that blue button below the video there, and you can get your copy right away and enter FretDojo as the discount code. And yeah, email me a receipt if you want all those charts, all the studio charts that go along with that. So yeah, we might wrap it up now, guys. So thanks very much for watching this workshop. And yeah, for those of you that are new to FretDojo, check it out. Head over to my website, www.FretDojo.com, and you'll be able to get a whole bunch of resources there about how to improve your jazz guitar playing. And yeah, I've got some pretty exciting stuff planned over the next couple of months. So I've been interviewing a very high profile jazz player that I'll be kind of putting up there in a couple months time. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting stuff. And yeah, in the meantime, we might wrap it up. So from myself and Stuart, bye for now.
Thanks, guys.